wait a minute. Did I write January 20 instead of January 30? Oh no, typo. Okay, I'll have to fix that later. Today is January 30 and we're live. Hi, I'm Debbie Levitt from Delta CX, and I am here to take your questions on product strategy in general, CX, UX, etc. I'm going to fix this on YouTube. It's a little harder to fix on LinkedIn. But oops, typo. So if you would like to ask a question, you can send it in to, hey Mike, deltacx.com/links. I already got a few questions ahead of time because you can send questions to that whenever you like. Hello, Ana Lucia. And of course, even today we have a question from one of our mid-level low ego action heroes from our Patreon. So her question will be first as part of the Patreon perks. And of course, thank you to everybody who is supporting the content here through the Patreon. Looks like my internet's blipping a little bit. I apologize for that. Hopefully it'll settle down. But thanks. If you want to join our Patreon, there's a free tier and there are paid tiers. And again, you can find that at patreon.com/CXCC. But of course, it's always free to join this show, watch this show, ask a question, get my opinions on stuff. I like to think of it as free international mentoring. Sorry that my internet is looking, I don't know why I'm getting a blinking in my streaming software, but my internet looks pretty strong. So let me know if something's going wrong. Sometimes the video will drop a little bit, but the audio will stay good because I think the audio is more important, but that's what my streaming software does automatically. So we've got lots of questions today that were already sent ahead of time, and I'll be looking for yours to come in as well. I will do my best to watch email where I sometimes miss your anonymous questions. These can be asked anonymously, which people also like, and you can write something much longer over there. So let's take a look at our first question. Oh, hi, Mir. Okay, so this question should look familiar. From a mid-level low ego action hero, it says, a company I was considering sending a speculative application to has just opened a UX researcher position. I have 6 years of experience as a UX designer, but doing both research and design. Some of the research I've done includes discovery interviews, concept testing, moderated and unmoderated usability testing, surveys, card sorts for IA, and experiment and heuristic analysis, as well as introducing research as a key step in product development and helping other designers prepare and design their studies better. I'm wondering how to rewrite my CV so that it better fits a pure UX researcher role. What key information are recruiters looking for when reviewing researchers' experience? Methods, number of people interviewed, analysis method, artifacts created, etc. I already have impact measures for some of the redesigns I've done, so I'm going to keep those. Okay, so I've got a little inside information here because the person who asked this and I had a coaching call yesterday, so I saw their CV. I got to speak to them about it more personally, but I thought it would still be fun to include their question here in case it can help other people. So let's say that you've been doing research and design, both of them, either under a researcher title or a designer title for some years, and now you're trying to go for a job that really is only looking for one of those. How do we communicate that? I'm just a fan of the truth. I think that whatever has been your experience is important to include. I don't think a researcher who's done design looks bad. I don't think a designer who's done research looks bad. So I don't think there's a way for you to necessarily look bad here. The question is, will you look good enough to interview? Hi, Chantel P. I was just mentioning you in the Discord. I don't know if you wrote back. Did I miss it? No, you did. You didn't write me back yet. So what can we do in our CV or LinkedIn to make sure that someone looking at us for a research job sees that we are a good candidate to interview? To me, some of that is impact, as this person mentioned. They mentioned that, hey, I can show that work I've done increased efficiency or decreased cost or saved time or something that we were able to tell a story about or measure. always include that. And sometimes you want to lead with that because people love to see that kind of stuff. Oh, there's an anonymous question coming in now. I'll put it at the end of the list. We do have a few questions today already. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so the anonymous question, you'll be number 5. This is still number 1. And also we know that a lot of CV and resume and LinkedIn stuff is just a keywords game. So people are going to these places and searching for keywords, or your CV or resume goes through some sort of scanner and they're trying to see if what keywords come up or what keywords match. So I think that another way to tell the story is almost like you did in your question. Name stuff, name tools. Oh, it's okay, Chantel. I was just worried how things went for you recently. Name tools, name techniques, name methods, name, if these things have multiple names, name them in multiple ways. User research, UX research, discovery research, whatever is appropriate, whatever is true. To me, we are truth seekers, and whatever is true is what we should do. I do not recommend stretching stuff or bending stuff in a resume or CV, because even if that got you the interview, you could lose the job. I've seen this before, where someone doesn't have as much. Let's say you're a designer who's done some research, and now this is a research job. You could go into that interview. Let's say I'm the hiring manager. I fire some research questions at you and you can't really answer them, or you don't answer them well, or it shows that you don't have as much research as your CV showed. Okay, thanks for the interview, but you probably stop here. Hey, Professor Clemens, good to see you. Got any questions? Anything you want to challenge me with? You'll have to be question number 6 in that case, and we're still on number 1. So all in all, I think resumes are a bit of a keywords game. Get all the keywords in there. Make sure you've got your most compelling stuff on page 1. And I don't mind having a slightly smaller font on mine, knowing that in many cases, humans are not reading it, or when they are, it's a PDF that they can blow up on their screen. So, Sean says, I agree. Keyword and SEO, that's key. Yeah, thank you for backing me up on that. Though if I'm wrong, I'm happy for someone to tell me, because I'm not an expert on resumes and CVs. I just tend to have good luck with mine. So that would be a key thing. And of course, your storytelling. But to me, your resume and your story and your portfolio have to tell me a good enough story just for me to interview you. You're not going to get the job from either of these. It's speed dating. I'm going to look at that resume or CV and say, does it look like this person knows what they're doing? Okay, yeah, let's meet them. Otherwise, then you get shortlisted versus, it looks like they don't really know what they're doing, or something like that. So that's some general advice there. First, let me go grab that anonymous question that came in. Make sure I get it on the end of the list, since I sometimes forget. Okay, it's a question about dark mode. I was going to say delicious, but then I realized that was dark meat. As someone who eats meat. Okay, so hopefully to the person who asked this semi-anonymous question, since it was in our Discord in the mid-level low ego action hero area. Oh, we've got a bunch of chat messages coming up. I wasn't looking. Let's see. You may also be giving the interviewer more credit. They might not know a lot about design research. Yeah, sometimes they're searching for keywords they've heard of. I heard of a card sort. I've heard of interviews. I've heard of contextual inquiry. I've heard of whatever. Totally good points, Sean. Professor says, enjoying the show. I hope so. Mike says, could you give some examples of research questions you mentioned that could be asked in an interview? Okay, so let's use this as a quick follow-up question before we get to the next question. And it's not like, to me, the main question I tend to have in my back pocket might just be, let's say you had the opportunity to do a good research project. What's your process? What's your preferred process, if you weren't blocked by something? Because we can always make our process shorter, lesser, faster. What's your preferred process if you didn't have to rush it? That gives me a lot of information about people. One time I asked someone that, and they spoke for about 2 minutes on how important research is. Guess what I didn't hear? You can't fool the researcher. I actually didn't hear what their process was, and I did try asking another once or twice. So that was a little bit of an oops on that person's part. I have my phone sound on today so I don't miss anybody's questions. So please excuse if you hear boodly boop 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 and things like that. Other questions that I ask in the interview, sometimes they're just more directly related to what people have in their CV or their resume or portfolio. Like, hey, it says here that you introduced research to engineers, as the previous question said. Tell me more about how you did that. Tell me more about how you did that and how it turned out. So sometimes the questions are going to be poking a little bit more about the experience you say you have or the skills you say you have. So again, Mike, I can't say I have a list of questions I always use. It's really, I like for these to be more flowing conversations. Now, that being said, the place where I work now, in order to be fair to every interviewing candidate, they always ask them the same things. And then if we have extra questions, we ask those, but the initial questions are the same for every candidate. So some places will have pre-written questions. Sometimes I'm asked, what is some work I'm most proud of? I get asked, tell me about a time you had a conflict with somebody and how you resolved that. Those are generally very common questions. All right, let's go back to question number 2 that we got ahead of time. And again, we welcome people telling long stories since this is anonymous and there is no character limit. So we do get some long stories here, and I will read this out loud. I know it's very hard to see on the screen. Okay, and we've got a question from Solomon. You will be question 6 today. And we are on question 2. So sorry that it's slow going as usual. Ciao, Clemens. Okay, so this question says, any tips on how to get through burnout or how to work with difficult stakeholders who hold a lot of decision-making power? My company mainly sees UX as pixel pushers, and the only other designer on the team and I have been working hard to change that perspective. We've had varying degrees of success within our Scrum teams, but the department heads of engineering and product management are hard to convince. They're the ones deciding what's a priority and what solution to build. They expect us to build a lot of things fast without research and cut corners with the justification, this is an internal tool. Users have no choice but to use it. Which again, I always want to take those people to users' desks and say, okay, this person has to use this tool some of their day or all of their day. Look them in the eye and tell them you don't care if this is easy to use or not. And then you get kind of a silent, awkward moment. To continue the question, there's no design manager. We're left on our own devices with the instruction to just support product managers who are also order takers. After 3 years of working here, I'm finally getting UX added to a process document that explains product development at the company. Originally, we were left out. One of the more difficult PMs I've been working with is also starting to ask me for more research. But lately, I'm so exhausted from all the fighting I've had to do up to now that I'm struggling to deliver that work. And I'm seeing the change in the Scrum teams, but not in the management where the power lies. Any tips? Yes. Okay, so of course, thing 1, give them my book. Can't help it. Customers know you suck. Hand it over, pass it, hashtag, give them my book. There's a lot of tips here, and I'll try to not run too long on this because there's a lot of questions in here. So how to get through burnout. We've got a playlist back on the Delta CX channel. Today we're on the CXCC channel, CX-CC. The old Delta CX channel has a whole playlist, and I think it's called like Psychology and Dealing with Work Conflict. Do yourself a favor and go through that playlist. I think we've got stuff on dealing with people who gaslight you, dealing with narcissists, dealing with burnout. Check that one out. Episode 78 is finding your life purpose. Maybe that's a good one to reflect on right now. But, to me, how do you get through burnout? Usually everyone's answer is self-care. What can you do for yourself that will give you a break from this job? Don't take this job home. When something really gets me down, I like to either think about it on my own and then try to come up with a solution, or just let it go, or talk with my husband about it. He's super nice and helpful, good listener, good ideas, and then try to let it go. I think the more we make it part of our fabric, the more likely it is to harm us. Give yourself permission for the end of the day to be the end of the day, and for you to think about other things. Yes, those things will always be there, and they might always suck, but you get to stop at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever it is. That's it. Nobody wins any awards for thinking about work all night and into the night and in the next morning. You are allowed to dial it down. Reminds me of a song by a guy who did our theme song, How Do I Dial It Down? That's what I say to you. How do you dial it down? Sean says, contextual inquiry is one of my faves. Me too. How do you deal with difficult stakeholders who hold a lot of decision-making power? I find that those people don't want to change while there isn't much accountability. If they're not in trouble for bad decisions, if they're not in trouble for uninformed decisions, if they're not in trouble for decisions that lead to poor outcomes, didn't make our goals, lost customers, then it's usually hard to change them because they have no incentive to change. There's no reason to do better. They can skate along making bad decisions, wasting time, wasting money, creating poor morale. Nobody cares. Hi, Sarita. How's it going? I think I know who that is. So sometimes you can't change these people. That's why, page 6 of my book says you might not be able to make change, and that's okay. The most important thing is your mental health and you staying focused on balancing your needs with doing a good job at work. So what would I do in your particular case so that we can move on to some more questions? And you can always contact me privately. We've got Slack and Discord communities that are mostly free. Our new Discord community, our CXCC Discord community, is read-only if you're not a paid Patreon member and fully operational if you are, and that starts at $1 a month. So I love to see people checking out our Patreon. We have almost 200 members there, and about a third are paying. So just join. Maybe you'll pay, maybe you won't. Still good. Still welcome. You'll still be among the first to know because it's essentially also my mailing list. So what would I do? If you have someone who is asking for research, they become my focus because now you have the chance to prove something. Someone says, I wish we had more research. Even if it's evaluative, though I always hope it's more generative or early or behavioral or discovery. But if someone says, you know what, I wish we could get our questions answered. I wish I had more research. I turn my attention there because that could end up, if they really want that research and aren't just lying about it, that could be that internal case study that will really help us go back to other teams and go, there wasn't much or any research on this team. We dropped by and worked for X weeks on this. We were able to give them this information that they didn't have before, get their questions answered in a sprint or two or whatever it is. And now they're empowered to do this better, make better decisions, better strategies, better products, better whatever. Yes, stay positive. Work in UX is always transformation work. That's right. There's a lot of us who have change agent in us, and that's why I'm so excited for tomorrow's free webinar, which takes place on Google Meet, not here on the channel. So check it out, cc.to/events. Tomorrow we're going to be interviewing a researcher and change agent about the type of work she does. So check it out. Hello from India. Hello to India. And if you can't catch it tomorrow, don't worry. We're recording the webinar series. They go to our paid Patreons for 2 weeks, and then they're on the CX-CC YouTube channel in the main playlist. So look for them there. Person who wrote here, I'm glad you were able to make some change. It's always hard when the leaders are pushing against that change. There must be something about it that they don't want to do differently, which is so funny because so many of our processes say, welcome change, experiment, be agile, keep trying what's new and what's different. And then people are like, no, we're fine. Reminds me, I don't know who's old enough to remember the Saturday Night Live sketch of the Christmas songs for people in difficult families. And it was like, leave me alone, I'm doing fine, just go away. So I think that's what rings in my head when I hear some of this stuff. Doing well despite my research being ignored last week. I feel like I walked into the exact topic I'm going through. Yeah, we know this is unfortunately common. And Sarita, we know you've done a lot of great work at the company you've been at in a difficult situation. Luckily, you do have a little bit of leadership support. Why am I talking about her? Like, I know her. She's active in our Slack community, and she shared some of her struggles with us. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm stalking you or that I'm making this up. But let me move on because we have so many questions and the show is a third over, and I'm worried I'm not going to get to everybody today. So let's get the next one up. And of course, if people who asked a question feel like I didn't answer it enough, you can always come to the community or come to me privately and see if I can give you a little bit more help for free. If people need a lot more help, you might want to consider my coaching, which is linked from the deltacx.com/links page. But I do try to answer shorter questions for free in our communities and private messages. Okay, this question says, I've been applying for UX jobs on and off for about half a year now, and I've noticed the same companies advertising the same positions again and again. There are so many experienced and skilled people looking for jobs because of the year and a half of layoffs. Yet these companies can't fill these positions. At least on paper, they look like proper UX jobs too. What's going on? At least in your opinion, I'm finding it hard to understand. Yeah, I've heard about this one where people say, wow, I got rejected from this job that I was an absolute match for. They wouldn't even interview me. And then a month later, the job was posted to LinkedIn again. It can be a lot of different things. It can be, sometimes it's a recruiter. It's not the actual company. Sometimes it's a recruiter who's just trying to fill their database with people who match this so that when they have something, they have a bunch of people they can email and say, oh, hey, you were looking for that senior UX designer job. We've got something like that. Let's see. Oh yeah, Sean says, I watched Coneheads. Tanvi, senior stakeholders mostly care about business impact. There are tons of case studies available online about how some of the most popular brands had to bear major monetary losses when they didn't consider usability when designing. Quoting those case studies in stakeholder meetings could help. Yeah, and sometimes they still don't care. Sometimes companies don't care until they get sued, and sometimes they don't care after they get sued. You're not wrong, Tanvi. I'm just saying sometimes even that doesn't work. We have a very tough question from LinkedIn, but I will put it at the end of our list, and I hope we get to it today. We might have to say no more questions for today. Yeah, Sean agrees. Let's say no more questions for today. I've got so many and I think I'm not going to have time. I agree that they're probably collecting resumes for some unforeseen, unknown future. It could be a third-party company, an agency, a staffing organization who just wants to collect resumes and CVs, get you into their database so they can spam you about jobs. Because remember, those people make a lot of money when they find you a job. And so they want to have a database of candidates they can spam when they see a job that they think could match you. Yes. So I would say don't worry about it, but I probably wouldn't apply to those, especially if you've already applied once. These jobs might not be real, because if it is real, something very bad is going on at this company that they need to post this job every month or every few months. Good, Chantel. Thank you for the update. I'll read more of that after the show. So, if I apply once and I see that job come back up again 3 months later, 6 months later, I usually don't apply again. I usually take that as a sign that these people are disorganized, or it's very much a revolving door and they can't seem to keep anybody, or the job isn't real. So, yeah, to me, I would say don't worry about it too much. Just walk away. Okay, we got another long question that came in ahead of time. Here we go. And I know the font is small. I will read it out loud. It says, Hi, Debbie. What are your thoughts on the relationship between science and CX? Ooh, did Clemens ask this? Or is Clemens going to try to answer this? He should. Is CX an applied science? If not, should it be? With the need for scientific method, standardized peer review, control conditions, replication, fraud detection, addressing sponsorship and lobbying issues, etc.? Or is it more of a results-oriented field that sometimes utilizes psychological or other scientific principles in a simplified manner without largely bothering about their accuracy outside of delivering desired results? This question is inspired by my observation of CX and UX practitioners' tendency to overgeneralize scientific findings or psychological principles and generally be inclined to treat pop science and pop psychology as all there is to it. But maybe for the purpose of CX, that's all people need to effectively perform their job. Ooh, what an incredibly interesting question. Definitely a deep and rich and interesting question. And I gotta tell you, my gut reaction when I first read this question, when it came in a few days ago, was I am so proud of my audience. I am so proud of my community, A, that you come up with this question, and B, that you feel like you can ask it to me. I'm just so proud. I'm just so proud that I can exist in this world of you people. So thank you. Okay, so I would probably say the answer is in the middle. While I agree with you that some people working in CX and UX are not particularly scientific and might not have studied much or any psychology and might think that high-level, surface, shallow psychology principles and laws of UX are all there are or all we need. Maybe they're doing okay work. Now, I also agree that I believe even better work can be done when people have deeper knowledge into cognitive psychology, deeper knowledge of what a more rigorous or scientific study would look like. That being said, I think of myself as someone in the middle. I don't come from academia. And so I don't imagine that a research project that I do for my client or a job where I'm working requires peer review. How long would that take? And I mean, think about some of the other questions we've seen here today and the questions we tend to get and the lives we're living, where a lot of times people are saying, how fast can you do this? It's very rarely, how well can you do this? How deeply can you do this? How richly can you do this? What's the quality of what you're doing? It should be. I want those to be questions. I want us to have standards. Clemens says, yes, CX as a kind of UX is applied science, and that's how it's been standardized and used in regulatory issues. So yes, I do think of it as an applied science, but I don't take a kind of academic approach to it. I don't expect the study I'm doing at my job to learn more about how students do XYZ at their university. I don't expect that to be peer reviewed. I don't think I have the time to have that peer reviewed. If I'm the only researcher on the project, who is my peer? I believe that if we're using human-centered design, we have the scientific method or our best variation of it. The scientific method starts with research and observation. So if we're doing research, that's where we start. I think I've got a graphic on this. Please hold. Scientific method graphic. Here it is. Let's talk about scientific method. So very often, what you'll hear from people is, hey, look, we just have to release it or experiment with it, and then we'll improve it, optimize it, iterate on it. But they very rarely rethink it. They think that just some small change is going to get us there. This is not really scientific, and to me, it's not really the scientific method. But if we bring back user-centered design and human-centered design into our process, now we have something that looks more like the scientific method. Step 1, research, observe. Step 2, form a question or write a problem statement. What are we even talking about here? Step 3, create a hypothesis. What's a possible solution or improvement to the problem we found or the question we asked? Step 4, design and run your experiment, etc. So this is something that I do to remind people that when they say, hey, just have a hypothesis and experiment with it, that's definitely not the scientific method. It's just the last bits of it, and it really misses a lot of the early research and behavioral research we should be doing. Clemens says, part of it is rooted in creative work. Still, this has to meet the quality in order to work according to human factors, but it's a huge field of different professions. Sean says, money and budget have a lot to do with it. Clemens says, agree. Yeah, so yes, to me, good user-centered design, human-centered design has the scientific method built into it. When we skimp on that, it shows. We feel it. Control conditions. Good recruiting will have some of that, but not all of that. For example, I often tell people, as much as listening labs and learning labs are cool, you've brought people out of their element to put them in your control conditions, but now they're not using their equipment. They're not in their environment. That to me is not the right way to go, because it lacks some of that scientific approach. Sure, it's easier for us if people drag their asses into our office or our lab, but now it's less realistic to their experience, and in that sense has less scientific rigor. Replication. Again, if we took the time to replicate every study, I think we might never get anywhere. We must be able to balance this, especially in a corporate or agency or government environment. Unless the government environment or one of these is specifically asking for this level of scientific rigor, chances are we're not going to bother with the replication, just like we're not going to bother with the peer review. So I already do a little bit of fraud detection in my recruiting, not necessarily fraud detection of my research and did I do something unethical or fraud based, but I do try to remove the frauds from my recruiting. But again, we're in a world where when I say I want to do 6 weeks of research, the average product manager, and luckily there are some above average product managers, but the average product or project manager will say to me, well, what can you do in 1 week? So if that's the world in which we're living, it's going to be really hard for us to try to fight for the additional weeks, if not months, of fraud detection, peer review, and some of these other things that you've mentioned. That's why I say I want to find that middle ground where I believe my research has good rigor. And honestly, I'm really honored that I'm working at a university right now, though not in academia. I'm in the tech department working on tools for staff and students and so on. And one of my top stakeholders who has a PhD complimented my research rigor. And I was really honored by that. And I think she's pretty cool. So I think that while my research is not going to look like academic research, it's also not going to take the time of academic research. And I'm trying to find that happy middle. So I hope that answers the question. It's a cool question. I think we could talk a lot more about it. But I think that there's definitely a middle ground between, I just read the Laws of UX book and that's all I need to know about cognitive whatever, and this more kind of tradition, what I'm calling academic, when I think about peer reviews and replication and fraud detection. It's not that I think these are bad ideas, it's that I think we don't have time. And sometimes by the time you go to replicate a study, people have changed. And then people are going to go, well, why? Like at work, they did a study in 2018. I did a study late last year. They came up with different results. And some people were like, well, is one of these wrong? And it's like, well, sometimes times just changed. So if you try to replicate it, what if times just changed? So much more complicated in a fast-moving world that wants to be agile or wants to just be fast for any good or bad reason. So yeah, if anybody joining live has any other comments or thoughts on that, please add them. We are getting your comments. It's delayed by about a minute, but they do come up. All right, let's take a look at our dark mode question, and I'll also check if we're missing any, let's see, am I getting any questions in? No, okay. Thank you for ordering. Invoice. I don't know what I bought, but I'll file that for later. Okay, so let's put the next question up. Oh, and Clemens says, we still tend to have the wrong discussions with the wrong people. You know this already. Yeah, and that's part of recruiting. And again, I always tell people, hold on, where's my graphic? Let's go graphic heavy today. I've got them. Let's use them. Here it is. All right. What are some of the main phases of a good research project? And again, these are phases, which means there's tasks within them, and our phases and all of our tasks need to be done at least reasonably well, if not really well. So what are we talking about here? What in general are we looking to learn? That's where I love to run my knowledge quadrant exercise from episode 196. Just go to YouTube and write CX-CC, it's up here, 196, you'll learn all about knowledge quadrant. Now we can use that to feed our planning, our goals, our strategy. So we're going to write a proper research plan. We're not going to skip that. Of course, that plan includes our protocol and our script and guide, whatever you're calling it, as well as whatever tasks we're going to have people do. Again, I find that a lot of people who are new to research just think research is talking to a few people. These are already steps they're missing. They just think, I'm just going to call people up and ask them what they like and what we're missing. Ooh, we're already missing some of this important rigor. Next, of course, we have recruiting. And that's what Clemens is talking about. Are we going to talk to the wrong people? Not enough people. It's usually not too many people, but not enough people or the wrong people. Hey, did you call 3 white guys this week and ask them what they want? Not enough of the right people and possibly the wrong people. So no thanks. Execution. How do we execute moderated and unmoderated sessions? A lot of talent, skill, experience, technique, and science go into that. And that means it's very different from when people say, hey, you just ask people questions, right? Not so much. Analysis, synthesis, and of course, documenting and reporting on insights, opportunities, and actionable suggestions. Which also leads me to, what graphic was I going to put up? This one. Okay, too many graphics up at the same time. Let's fade out this one. So this is why I talk about how when you don't really understand UX or you're new to it, you see the building blocks. You see researchers talk to people. Designers work in Figma. You're kind of at this low level of understanding what we do. So you just see some of the tools, or you see kind of like that tip of the iceberg kind of thing. And I call those the building blocks. But there's so much more to research than I talk to a person. And there's so much more to design than I used Figma. Ana Lucia says, I'm synthesizing my data right now after your quadrant. And you know what? I was able to answer all the questions the stakeholders had. And you know what? That's going to deliver research value immediately. Immediately, not later. All those people are going to go, holy shit, we got our questions answered. This is amazing. You found out all the things and you found out why. Unbelievable. This is great. Immediate research value. So back to my triangle, which I've already forgotten the name of because I haven't rolled it out in like a year. But as we move up past researchers talk to people and designers use Figma, we start to understand that there is science and technique here. Okay, it might not be an academic research project, but there is science and technique here, and that better work is done when that is utilized. And that's why we have so many conflicts with people, because sometimes people who say, yeah, UX research is easy, I can do that, they're not using science and technique. Or everybody's a designer, I'll make some screens. Okay, you might open up Figma, but you're not using science and technique. And then finally, for people who become more experienced, you start being more strategic. You start being more strategic in your planning. You start being more strategic in how you use different aspects of user-centered design or human-centered design in your project. You start looking at, what do I have time to do a great job in here? And is there something here? Too many layers. Is there something here that I might have to skimp on, sadly, for a good or bad reason? And that's where we're more strategic. We're more strategic in the suggestions that we give people. We don't just give them the fire hose of, here's what everybody said, good luck, figure it out. We've got to give them actionable insights and suggestions. Okay, we may not, a research report shouldn't necessarily include wireframes, but we want to give people actionable suggestions rather than here's a fire hose of information. Good luck, you figure it out. I'm just getting a private message that says, so your book is great. Thank you. To the person who sent me that private message but might not be watching. My book is called Customers Know You Suck. You can learn more about it at cxcc.to/CKYS. And that page will lead you to free versions of it, like my audiobook, and name your own price versions, which are as little as $1 American, as well as printed books that cost money. So check out Customers Know You Suck. People like it. And then please leave a review on Amazon, especially if you liked it. I could use more great reviews. My goal is to get 50 more reviews this year, hopefully good ones. All right, we had another question, but yeah, it's a great, we got 3 questions and we got 20 minutes. I think we'll make it today. Alrighty. Dark mode. Here we go. Let's open up the dark mode question. Here we go. Dark mode website for financing and banking websites. Does being in dark mode affect the user experience? How can we utilize it and provide good user experience with aesthetically pleasing designs? I believe that you should make available to your users both a light mode and a dark mode. I think that it's pretty split on who prefers which for which reasons. Some people say, oh, dark mode, I really need it for this reason, this accessibility reason, that accessibility reason. And then I hear other people say, I need light mode for this reason, that reason. I think we're at the point now where if we care about accessibility and if we care about DEI, the diversity of our audience, you technically have to make both, and I think they can both be aesthetically pleasing. Very often when I open apps on my phone, I'm Samsung phone Android person, hashtag not sponsored. Do I still have hashtag not sponsored? Yeah, here we go. Hashtag not sponsored. There's a lot of apps that I go into that say, do you want this app in light mode? Do you want this app in dark mode? Or do you want the app to inherit whatever you've chosen in your operating system and default to that? And so I think that you should consider creating both and giving users the choice, because there are plenty of reasons for people to prefer one or another. You should know more about accessibility, color contrast, color blindness, which I don't love that term. I think I prefer at this point the Italian term for it, which we would translate to Daltonism. That seems a little bit more friendly than saying someone is color blind. I feel like that's a little judgmental, but that is still the term that we use. So how do we utilize a dark mode and provide a good user experience? That's up to you. Are you the designer? You got to figure that out. I can't say, oh, if it's dark mode and you want a good user experience, always do this. The only thing I can say is always understand the same things that we do, whether it's light mode or dark mode. Clemens says, don't use dark mode. Bad for the eye, bad ergonomics. Even if you like it, it's still bad. Yes, but it's kind of hip right now. It's kind of popular. So I would say make both available to people, because even if it's bad for your eyes and bad for ergonomics, look, people still smoke. We know now smoking's not great for you. People do it anyway. So if dark mode is bad for you, people are going to use it anyway. They like it for whatever reason. And I think we're at the point where we just have to make both of these available. And it's up to the designer to make them usable, valuable, accessible, good contrast, easy to determine things, not messaging with color. I'm definitely a light mode person myself. So I'm happy to hear from Clemens I'm doing all the right things. But I'm definitely a light mode person. I do recommend it, but I do recognize that for the rainbow of peeps out there, they might want a dark mode. I don't know why. I was the person who always wished Photoshop had a light mode. Do you remember? Does it now? I haven't used Photoshop in so many years, but I was always like, why is this thing so dark? Was it Photoshop or am I thinking of something else? Maybe it's not Photoshop. Anyway, thank you for the dark mode question. It's definitely an interesting one. Clemens says, this is a good example of science in UX. Science tells us dark mode is harmful, bad ergonomics, and people still like it. Absolutely. Sure. Gambling is bad. People still like it. You know, I can't fix everything. I'm going to have to focus my energies in certain places. Lucia says, having choices is the best way. Someone just booked private coaching with me, and it was someone I was hoping would do that. Oh, good. See you soon. If you allow the user to choose, you're empowering them. Yes, and according to good morning, Victor. I agree. Make both available. Yeah. So again, even if one isn't the best for eyes or eye health, what can I tell you? Make both available. Even if Clemens wants to use all caps and tell us we're all evil. And you shall burn in the fiery hellfire of dark mode. Ah! Yeah. What can we do? People like things that are bad for them sometimes. Sean says, I used dark mode, didn't realize the eye strain. Yeah, I guess it's possible. Ana Lucia says, I love dark mode. I use it everywhere. I can't use light mode because my eyes have been quite sensitive. Light mode makes my eyes watery. I can't even use my computer. Yeah, look, everybody's got their reasons, and I'm not going to tell you you're right or wrong. I'm just going to suggest we make both available to people while keeping color blindness and color contrast in mind. Groovy. Moving on. We got 15 minutes left. We have a couple of questions. Are people sending me more questions? I hope not. We probably don't have time. Someone bought 5 hours of my time in one of my discounted packages. Thank you, coaching client friend. Okay. What's your opinion on defining user journeys? Do you find it useful as a means to capture a user's experience with a product? Excuse me. I've become so excited, I need a drink. Oh, and Mike's chiming in. I feel dark or light mode depends on your environment. I don't want my screen so bright in the middle of the night on an airplane, and I feel light mode is easier on a bright day. And Clemens says, thou shalt not whatever, which is very New York of you, Clemens. Well, even though I know you're not from New York, I'm just being silly. All right, let's talk about user journeys. One question that I always ask to people before they start mapping user journeys, whether these are on a smaller scale in a customer journey map, on a medium scale in a task analysis, or a larger scale in a service blueprint, is what are you empowered to do at your job? And Olivia, did you want to be on Mommy's show today? Come here. Oh, I'm going to get her. Hold on. You said you wanted to be on Mommy's show. Come here. Come here. I'm going to put you on the show. Oh no, she's running away. My dog lied to me earlier and said she wanted to be on the show. Now that I tell her I'm putting her on the show, she's literally running away. My animals are funny. In fact, if you're following my dogs on Instagram, you know that today one of my dogs escaped into the fenced yard. They're interesting. So again, before you map any of this stuff through whatever means you're going to do, who's going to get this document? What are they going to do with it? What are the desired outcomes from this exercise? Who has power, autonomy, whatever else we might need, authority to make change? I have people writing to me from all over the world who say, I'm in a CX or UX role. I keep getting asked to make user journeys and customer journey maps. And then when I raise up what some of our opportunities are and our key problems and blah, 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 no one does anything. So my first thought is, if you're in that situation, decide if a user journey of any type is worth your time. I don't want to see you embark on a user journey mapping experience that is going to be overlooked or dismissed or whatever, because then you're going to come back another Tuesday and go, I did a great set of user journeys and nobody gave a shit. And I'm going to go, okay, that's one of the reasons I try to find out first if what are we going to do with these? What are we going to really make decisions, change strategies, or create strategies, make change from these? Otherwise, I hate to see people put in a lot of effort into these artifacts that sometimes, as Larry Marine would say, end up in a drawer or the circular file. Quick side note. If you have not read Larry's new book, Disruptive Research, you are missing out. This one is an absolute winner, and I can say so because I ghost wrote a lot of it. So this is a well-written book with some of my writing with all of his ideas. He's amazing. You want to read that one too. Get it on the list. So, do I think user journeys are useful as a means to capture a user's experience with a product? Not necessarily, only because of the way you've asked the question. Do I want a user journey of their experience with our product or a product? Not as much as I want, everybody say it with me, a task analysis of the user's task. That may or may not include your product. Your product may be a moment in the journey. So I think if we only map the experience in the product, we're usually missing some of the best and most interesting opportunities, which of course is what the Disruptive Research book is about, y'all. So remember that to me, this is better than user journeys, more actionable, more detailed, and the better way to go. And I'm not paid to say that. Larry taught it to me, and it changed my work, changed my life, changed my career, and I would say for the better. Hey, Chris is here. Hi, Chris. Chris says, yes, I stopped making many of those docs when I saw none were getting used, even after explaining why they matter. I switched it up and I started focusing on the things they did find value in. Yes. And Sean says, being misunderstood sometimes come with the territory. It does, but that doesn't mean we have to like it. Clemens says, thank you for accepting me being weird. I wouldn't have you any other way, Clemens. We are peas in a pod. And I can't wait to see you later this year. So I'm super excited. We got to find some days before or after your big conference in October so we can hang out and be silly. Chantel says, I got Larry's book for Christmas, but you need to finish mine first. No problem. There's no rush. Larry's book will be great whenever you get around to it. He said he'd been trying to write it for 20 or 30 years. So he's just happy to see it's out there and available to you when you're ready. So task analysis, y'all. We did shows on this on the old Delta CX channel. So just go to YouTube, write Delta CX task analysis, or go to the Delta CX channel in the micro lessons playlist. Learn things. So going back to the other question, let's put that back up. I'm totally Jerry Todd. I've been watching SCTV. Does anybody know SCTV? I'm totally Jerry Todd, except I don't have an analog board where I put up my effects. I'm actually putting up a lot of the effects for my phone. Did y'all know that? A lot of the effects get set off from a little panel on my phone. Sometimes I put it on my Surface Pro for the touchscreen, but that's how I do it. So I don't think it's necessarily useful to say, okay, look, we have our app and here's what people tend to do. Now you could map out a user flow in your app. You could create a flow chart of here's what people do in our app. Here's what they're doing now. Here's how this could be improved. You can always do an app user flow and see where it's got room for improvement or streamlining or being more logical, intuitive, valuable. But I wouldn't necessarily turn it into a customer journey map or user journey map without including, where's my other graphic? Everything else. If you just map your ecosystem, your time in your app, time in your website, you're missing so much. And I go into this in my book as well. You're missing, why are people here right now? What triggered them to need this, do this, take an action, start a process, have a task. Orbit. What are some of the different things they're considering? What's their decision-making process? Ooh, now they're in our app, on our website, in our ecosystem. Okay, fine. And then what do they do after? Because very often something happens after. So I think that, again, when we just try to map this piece, isn't it great? I have these graphics ready to go. It's like, yeah, of course people ask me this stuff. When we just try to map that piece, we could miss important stuff about what's going on before, during, and after, because we just said, let's map the journey in our product. And I would love to see you map the task in a solution agnostic way so that we can see what else we could do better. That'll be my short version of that, but that was a long version. But I hope you liked it. All right, we've got a few minutes left, which means we have time for our last question. Thanks so much for everybody who's here. I do this usually every Tuesday. Some will be at 3 p.m. Italy time. Some are at 11 p.m. Italy time, so we can catch people in different time zones. Please note that I believe North American time zones are changing their clocks in mid-March, and we won't have changed. So remember, future people, always check cxcc.to/events or join our Discord, especially our CXCC Discord, because I've got some fun Discord tools set up to notify you when cool things are happening. All right, question. How to get a UX job after a career break in this hard job market? I don't have a good answer here. I don't know how to help anybody get a job in this messed up market, career break or not. Even people who are still working and never stopped working but just want to change because their job isn't good or not paying enough or not in the right place or something toxic's going on. I do not have good advice on how to get a job in this job market. It's bad. It's probably the worst I've seen in my career. Clemens, what do you think? I'm 52 and I've been working in UX. I've been doing UX stuff since the mid 90s because I had my own consulting company, but I started getting real UX jobs at companies you would know and not just consulting work in around 2010. So if you say I've been more formally in the corporate world for 13, 14 years now, this is the worst I've ever seen it. I don't have good advice. I don't have great advice for people starting out. I don't have advice for people coming back from a career break. I don't have good advice for anybody. I think that between the pandemic and the layoffs, your average hiring manager or recruiter or HR person is a little more forgiving of career breaks. In the old days, these used to be poison. If you didn't have a job, well, then there must be something wrong with you. But I think at this point, anyone with any sort of, let's say it together, what am I going to say? Anyone with any sort of empathy or even sympathy would understand that a lot of people don't have a job or are taking a bit of a forced career break or voluntary career break because the jobs just aren't there. So if anyone holds a career break against you, a forced one or a voluntary one, I think that sucks and I think you don't want to work there. So I wouldn't worry so much about the career break. I think at this point we're all used to the idea that people got laid off, people got sick with COVID, people had someone to take care of in COVID, people had children. I think the career break is not the disaster it used to be. I think this now feels a little bit more normal. I mean, take me last year. Last year, the consulting job I had, no, not last year, 2 years ago. What year is it? 2022, the consulting job I had ended in early July 2022. I didn't get the job I have now until May 2023. So it took 10 months or whatever it might have been, almost a year, to find that job. And okay, we got a couple of freelance and consulting work in between, but to some people, that was a career break. There were a couple of months there where I did not have a lot to do. It helped me finish up my book and work on Larry's. But, it didn't look like continuous work. And if someone held that against me, I would probably just find them to be lacking in compassion or empathy. Clemens says some industries are still hiring, and even more so, the problem is job roles are bad. Poorly written, you might not fit. It's very true. You have to read job descriptions very carefully. Some of them sound great, and you can go for it. And some of them make it very clear that they don't really value you. Everything's done by workshop. Just do what a product manager tells you. Or you're going to do 6 jobs at the same time, and we expect you to do them all well. So take job descriptions at face value. Don't assume like, wow, this job sounds like a giant bucket of bullshit, but I'll assume it's better than it is. Someone must have just written a weird job description. Oh no, that's the job. I loved your visuals, Debbie. They're so valuable, especially for people who are new to UX. Thank you so much. Well, thank you. I'm sorry my system is writing LinkedIn user and I don't know your name, but thank you so much. Yeah, I have a whole catalog of little visuals I use over and over. I keep them as little pop-up graphics that we use from time to time here. For example, I talked earlier about the knowledge quadrant, which is available in episode 196, based on an idea I got from Helen Page, and Ana Lucia helped me clean it up a little bit. So always credit to those people. So we've got a little graphic with that, but it's best if you watch episode 196 and get the full explanation of it. Clemens says, the boot camps and few-day certificates ruined the market, flooded the ecosystem with poorly qualified professionals. We have to repair this. Now, I know where Clemens is going with this, and watch it there, buddy. But I think that ultimately, a lot of these people will be weeded out if they have not leveled up their skill set. A lot of companies won't want to interview them or hire them. And what I suggest to them is that they take a good look at what they want to do with their job and life and career, because knowing that UX is a nearly impossible job to get, is it still burning in your heart? Is it still what you want to do? Maybe yes, maybe no. And I think many people will start shifting. They'll say, well, I thought I wanted to do UX, but it seems really hard to get into. I'm also interested in this. I'm going to go try that. So we'll see what happens. I think I've been predicting that for some time. I still think it's coming. All right, I've got to go start my workday because in addition to my Delta CX consulting company, which I hope you'll check out, I also have a current job right now, which I really do enjoy, and I am a lead UX researcher there. So I always like to remind people that I appear to be one of the few talking heads in UX that's actually doing the work. No, there are definitely some that are doing the work, but there are some that are not. And we see the same in product management and other areas. There are some people who haven't done this work in a long time and just write books. Thank you to our LinkedIn friends and our YouTubers who joined. Remember, please subscribe to YouTube CX-CC. It's our new channel, Customer Experience, Customer Centricity, where we're broadening our topics to go way beyond just the craft of UX and look more at strategic customer experiences and customer centricity. Don't forget our Patreon, which again, you can join for free or you can join as little as $1 American a month. And it just goes to support me, which I thank you very much for. And then, of course, our events. I'm starting our webinar series up again. In some cases, I'm doing as many as 2 free webinars a week. You can join them live or you can find them later. And they are going to be on Google Meet, so they're not going to be here. Check out the events calendar. Clement says, I'm an innocent troll dancing in the meadows, singing happily. Empathy is a dangerous thing. And meow meow design thinking. Yeah, I took meow meow design thinking graphic off my phone panel. I can't set that one off anymore. I can set off my dogs, but I can't set off meow meow. I took that off just to see if it would help some of my memory struggles with my streaming software. Victor says, sorry, this live is available on YouTube. We are live on YouTube right now. So you can find this later, archived much more easily than you can find stuff on LinkedIn. The channel is CX-CC, so you can find it on YouTube. You too, Mike. Have a good day. You can always find these archived on YouTube. I will go later on when I take a little break from my workday. I will put it in the right playlist, which will be the AMA playlist, and I'll make a cute thumbnail for it, which I don't have time to do right now because I got to start my workday. But again, I'm here usually every Tuesday, sometimes at 3 p.m., sometimes 11 p.m., so you're going to want to check the events calendar or join our Slack and